In this episode of ID Refusal, we take you to Kansas City, Missouri, where a routine interaction between a female police officer and a confident citizen takes an unexpected turn. It all starts when the officer approaches, asking for identification in what seems like a straightforward encounter. But the tables quickly turn as the citizen calmly asserts their rights, leaving the officer visibly caught off guard. The tension builds as the conversation unfolds, with each party holding their ground. The citizen's composed demeanor and clear understanding of the law stand in stark contrast to the officer's increasing frustration. What begins as a simple request for ID spirals into a fascinating exchange about authority, boundaries, and personal freedoms. As the scene intensifies, you'll find yourself questioning who truly has the upper hand in this encounter. Will the officer maintain control, or will the citizen's unwavering confidence leave her at a loss for words? Stick around to witness how this unexpected clash plays out. You won't want to miss it. As the officer presses for identification, the citizen calmly asks a simple but powerful question: am I being detained, or am I free to go? This moment marks a turning point, as it's clear the citizen knows their rights and isn't intimidated by the uniform. The officer hesitates for a split second, clearly not expecting such a confident response. Her tone shifts slightly, now laced with a mix of authority and uncertainty, as she tries to regain control of the situation. The backdrop of this scene, a quiet Kansas City street, adds an air of normalcy to an otherwise tense exchange. It's the kind of moment that could happen to anyone, but what sets it apart is the dynamic between the two individuals. The officer, used to compliance, finds herself facing someone who isn't willing to back down without a valid reason. The citizen's calm yet firm demeanor keeps the officer on edge, leaving the audience wondering, how far will this standoff go, and who will make the next move? The officer takes a step closer, her expression tightening as she repeats her request for identification. "I need to see your ID," she insists, her voice firmer this time. But the citizen doesn't waver. "Unless you can articulate reasonable suspicion of a crime, I'm not required to provide that," they reply calmly, their words measured and deliberate. A small crowd begins to gather at a distance, drawn by the escalating tension. Some passers-by glance curiously, while others pause to listen. It's clear that this moment has become more than just a routine encounter. It's now a silent battle of wills. The officer glances briefly at the onlookers, perhaps feeling the weight of their presence. Meanwhile, the citizen remains composed, standing their ground with quiet confidence. Every word they speak seems to challenge the officer's authority, not in an aggressive way, but with a clarity that's hard to dismiss. The officer, clearly caught between maintaining control and avoiding further escalation, faces a choice: double down or back off. What will she do next? The officer takes a deep breath, her patience visibly wearing thin. She shifts her stance, her hand resting near her utility belt, though she doesn't reach for anything. "You're obstructing an investigation," she says, her voice sharper now, trying to assert control. The citizen doesn't flinch. "What investigation?" "Standing here isn't a crime," they respond, their tone steady but unyielding. The crowd grows slightly larger, the murmurs of curious bystanders adding to the tension. The officer's radio crackles faintly, but she doesn't reach for it. Instead, she leans in just slightly, her voice low but firm. "I'm giving you one last chance to cooperate." The citizen meets her gaze, unwavering. "I am cooperating. I've asked a lawful question, and you've yet to answer it." The atmosphere feels heavy, almost electric, as both parties refuse to back down. The officer's authority is on the line, and the citizen's resolve remains unshaken. Every second feels stretched as the standoff teeters on the edge of something bigger. What happens next could change everything. Just as the tension reaches its peak, another officer arrives on the scene. This new figure steps out of their patrol car, surveying the situation with a calm but serious demeanor. The original officer quickly briefs them, her tone clipped, as if trying to maintain control of the narrative. The second officer nods, but doesn't immediately engage. Instead, They approach the citizen with a measured step, their presence adding a new layer of complexity to the standoff. The crowd grows quieter, sensing the shift in dynamics. The citizen, still composed, acknowledges the new officer with a slight nod. "Are you here to answer the question your colleague hasn't?" they ask, their voice steady but pointed. The second officer pauses, studying the citizen for a moment before responding. "I understand your concern," they say carefully, "but we need to establish some basic information. Let's work this out." The original officer looks visibly frustrated, her authority seemingly undermined by the more diplomatic approach of her colleague. The tension hangs in the air, and the audience is left wondering, will this new arrival diffuse the situation or escalate it further? The second officer takes a step closer, their tone calm but firm. "Look, no one wants this to escalate further. Let's clarify why we're here." They glance at the first officer, who reluctantly steps back, crossing her arms. The citizen, still standing tall, responds, "I've been asking that since the beginning. If there's no reasonable suspicion, I'm free to go." The second officer hesitates, then says, "You're right. Legally, if there's no suspicion of a crime, we can't detain you. But I'll ask one last time. Are you sure there's nothing you'd like to clarify before leaving?" The crowd holds its breath as the citizen replies, "I've done nothing wrong. Unless you can state otherwise, I'll be on my way." The second officer nods, signaling that the interaction is over. The first officer looks visibly upset but doesn't argue. As the citizen begins to walk away, the twist comes. A bystander steps forward, recording the entire scene. "You handled that like a pro," they say. The citizen smiles faintly but doesn't stop, leaving behind a scene charged with tension and a reminder of the power of knowing your rights. As the citizen walks away, the energy of the crowd shifts. Quiet conversations ripple through the onlookers, some expressing admiration for how the situation was handled. The first officer turns to her colleague, visibly frustrated. "You just let them go?" she asks. The second officer replies calmly, "There was no legal reason to hold them. Sometimes it's better to step back than to push too far." The bystander who recorded the encounter lingers for a moment before posting the video online, adding their own caption about the importance of knowing your rights. Within hours, the video begins to gain traction, sparking debates about authority, accountability, and the power of standing firm in the face of pressure. For the citizen, it's just another day of holding their ground and asserting their rights. But for everyone who witnessed the exchange, both in person and online, it's a reminder of the delicate balance between authority and individual freedoms. The story ends with a powerful takeaway. Knowledge is the ultimate tool for navigating moments like these.